What happens when one of wrestling's most beloved superstars meets one of television's most charming hosts, and everything goes catastrophically wrong? What started as a routine promotional appearance on the Clarkson show turned into one of the most explosive television moments of the year, with John Cena storming off set in a fury that left audiences speechless and Clarkson visibly shaken. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when two strong personalities clash over something nobody saw coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused this heated exchange. Because trust me, you're not going to believe how this all unfolded. The Clarkson show was having another typical afternoon taping, with the studio audience buzzing with excitement as they waited for the next guest to appear. Kelly, ever the professional, sat behind her desk reviewing her notes one final time, preparing for what she expected to be a light-hearted conversation with John Cena about his latest film project and his ongoing wrestling career. The production team had briefed her on the talking points, standard celebrity interview fare that would give viewers the perfect blend of entertainment and insight into one of Hollywood's most versatile performers. As the cameras began rolling and the familiar theme music filled the studio, Kelly flashed her signature warm smile to the audience. "Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with someone who needs absolutely no introduction. He's conquered the wrestling ring, dominated the box office, and somehow managed to become invisible to the naked eye. Please welcome the one and only John Cena." The audience erupted in cheers as Cena made his entrance, waving to the crowd with his characteristic enthusiasm. Sporting his usual clean-cut appearance and a perfectly pressed button-down shirt that screamed professionalism. "John, thank you so much for being here today," Kelly said, gesturing for him to take his seat on the plush interview couch. "I have to say, every time I see you, you just seem to get more and more handsome. How do you do it?" Cena chuckled, settling into his seat with the easy confidence of someone who had done thousands of interviews before. "Well, Kelly, I appreciate the kind words. But I think the real secret is just staying active, eating right, and surrounding yourself with positive people, which is exactly what I'm doing right here with you today." Kelly beamed at the compliment, clearly pleased with how smoothly the interview was starting. "That's so sweet of you to say. Now, I want to talk about your new movie, but first I have to ask about something that's been making headlines recently. There have been some reports about tensions backstage in WWE, some people saying that you've been difficult to work with lately. Care to comment on that?" The question seemed innocent enough, the kind of softball inquiry that most celebrities handle with practiced ease, deflecting with humor or a generic response about loving their work and their colleagues. But something shifted in Cena's demeanor almost immediately. His smile faltered for just a moment, replaced by a look that Kelly couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry, what exactly are you referring to, Kelly? Because I'm not sure where you're getting your information from." His voice remained level, but there was a subtle edge that hadn't been there moments before, a tension that seemed to catch Kelly slightly off guard. "Oh well, you know how these entertainment blogs can be," Kelly replied, trying to maintain her cheerful tone while clearly sensing that she had touched a nerve. "There were just some anonymous sources suggesting that you've been, I don't know, maybe a little demanding during recent tapings. I'm sure it's nothing serious, just curious if you wanted to address it." She waved her hand dismissively, as if trying to make light of the topic, but Cena's expression continued to darken. "Kelly, I've been in this business for over 2 decades, Cena said, his voice taking on a more serious tone that immediately commanded attention from everyone in the studio. "I've worked with thousands of people, from production assistants to main event superstars, and I pride myself on being professional, respectful, and dedicated to my craft. So when you sit there and casually mention anonymous sources making accusations about my character, that's not something I take lightly." The studio audience, which had been buzzing with excited energy just moments before, began to fall silent as they sensed the growing tension between the host and her guest. Kelly, clearly realizing that she had stumbled into more complicated territory than she had anticipated, tried to backtrack while maintaining her composure. "John, I didn't mean to offend you at all. These were just silly rumors, nothing more than gossip, really. I thought we could just laugh about it and move on to talking about your movie. But that's the problem, isn't it, Kelly?" Cena leaned forward slightly, his piercing gaze fixed directly on her. "You don't get to just throw out accusations based on anonymous sources and then dismiss them as silly rumors when someone calls you on it. That's not journalism, that's gossip, and frankly, I expected better from someone with your reputation." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Kelly's face flushed slightly as she realized that this interview was rapidly spiraling away from anything she had prepared for. "I understand you're upset," Kelly said, her voice becoming more measured as she tried to regain control of the situation. "But these questions are part of what makes for compelling television. Our viewers want to know about the real John Cena, not just the polished promotional version." It was a reasonable explanation. The kind of justification that talk show hosts use every day when they push their guests slightly outside their comfort zones. But Cena wasn't buying it. "The real John Cena," he repeated, his eyebrows raising in what appeared to be genuine disbelief. "Kelly, the real John Cena is someone who shows up on time, knows his lines, treats everyone with respect, and works harder than anyone else in the room. The real John Cena doesn't need to be defended against baseless accusations from people who don't have the courage to put their names behind their claims." His voice was rising now, not quite shouting but definitely louder than the conversational tone that had started the interview. Kelly looked toward her producers off camera, clearly seeking some guidance on how to handle the increasingly uncomfortable situation. The camera operators continued filming, knowing that this kind of unscripted drama was exactly the type of content that could go viral and generate massive attention for the show. "John, I hear what you're saying, and I respect your position," Kelly said, trying once more to find a way back to safer ground. "Maybe we should just move on to talking about your upcoming projects." "No, Kelly, I don't think we should just move on," Cena replied firmly, his jaw set in a way that suggested he was far from finished with this topic. Because moving on would suggest that what just happened here was acceptable, and it wasn't. "You ambushed me with unsubstantiated gossip, disguised as a legitimate question, and now you want to pretend like it never happened." The studio atmosphere had become thick with tension, and Kelly could feel the weight of hundreds of audience members watching this train wreck unfold in real time. She took a deep breath, clearly trying to summon the media training that had served her well throughout her career. But Cena's unwavering stare made it clear that he wasn't going to let her off the hook easily. "John, I understand that you feel blindsided, but this is how interviews work sometimes. We ask tough questions because our audience deserves honest answers." "Tough questions?" Cena's voice carried a note of incredulity that seemed to fill the entire studio. "Kelly, a tough question would be asking me about my acting choices, or my wrestling technique, or my charitable work. What you did was repeat tabloid nonsense without any verification or context. There's a difference between journalism and entertainment gossip, and right now, I'm not sure which one you think you're doing." Kelly's composure began to crack slightly, her famous warmth replaced by something more defensive. "Look, John, I've been doing this for years, and I know the difference between legitimate reporting and gossip. The information came from multiple sources within the wrestling industry, people who have worked closely with you. I didn't just make this up out of thin air." Her voice carried a sharpness that her regular viewers rarely heard, a sign that Cena's criticism was hitting closer to home than she wanted to admit. "Multiple sources," Cena repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. "Kelly, let me ask you something. Did any of these multiple sources give you their names? Did they provide specific examples of this alleged difficult behavior? Did they offer any concrete evidence whatsoever? Or did they just whisper sweet nothings in your producer's ear and call it a day?" The questions came rapid fire, each one delivered with the precision of someone who had clearly dealt with media manipulation before. The audience was now completely silent, hanging on every word of this unexpected confrontation. Kelly glanced down at her notes, perhaps hoping to find some escape route written there, but found nothing that could help her navigate these uncharted waters. The sources requested anonymity, which is standard practice in journalism when people are concerned about professional retaliation. That doesn't make their information any less valid. "Anonymity," Cena said, leaning back in his chair with a bitter laugh. "That's convenient, isn't it? Someone can say whatever they want about my character, my professionalism, my integrity, and they get to hide behind anonymity while I have to sit here and defend myself on national television. Tell me, Kelly, how exactly am I supposed to respond to accusations from people who won't even have the courage to identify themselves?" Kelly's media training kicked in as she tried to pivot the conversation once again. "John, I think you're taking this way too seriously. These kinds of stories come and go all the time in entertainment. Tomorrow, there will be some other celebrity gossip, and everyone will forget about this. It's really not worth getting this worked up over." Her attempt at dismissive casualness only seemed to fuel Cena's frustration further. "Not worth getting worked up over." Cena's voice rose another notch, and several audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Kelly, my reputation is everything in this business. When you put me on your show and repeat unsubstantiated claims about my character, you're not just making small talk, you're potentially damaging my livelihood. Do you understand that? Do you grasp the real-world consequences of what you're doing right now?" The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of this increasingly heated exchange. Kelly's producers were likely thrilled with the drama unfolding before them, knowing that this kind of unscripted conflict was television gold. But Kelly herself looked increasingly uncomfortable with the direction things were heading. "Of course, I understand the seriousness of it, John. That's why I gave you the opportunity to address it directly. You could have simply denied the allegations and we could have moved on." "Simply denied the allegations," Cena repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You mean like a politician denying corruption charges, or a celebrity denying drug use?" Just a simple denial that leaves viewers wondering what I'm trying to hide. Kelly, the fact that you even gave these anonymous accusations a platform legitimizes them in the minds of your audience. You can't unring that bell. Kelly was beginning to show signs of frustration herself, her carefully maintained television persona starting to slip. John, I'm trying to conduct a professional interview here, but you're making that incredibly difficult. I asked you a simple question based on information that my team researched, and you're treating me like I personally attacked you. This is supposed to be a conversation, not an interrogation, a conversation. Cena stood up suddenly, towering over Kelly and causing a visible ripple of surprise throughout the studio audience. Kelly, conversations are built on mutual respect and good faith. What you did was set a trap, plain and simple. You invited me here under the pretense of promoting my work, then ambushed me with gossip designed to create exactly this kind of dramatic moment. Well, congratulations, you got your moment. Kelly remained seated, but her body language had shifted noticeably, her shoulders tense and her smile completely gone. That is absolutely not what happened here. John, you're being paranoid and frankly, a little aggressive. I asked you about reports that are circulating in the industry, which is exactly what any competent interviewer would do in this situation. Aggressive. Cena's eyebrows shot up, and for a moment it seemed like he might actually laugh at the accusation. Kelly, I haven't raised my voice. I haven't used profanity. I haven't made any personal attacks against you. All I've done is hold you accountable for the questions you've chosen to ask and the sources you've chosen to rely on. If that strikes you as aggressive, maybe you should reconsider whether you're cut out for this line of work. The insult hit its mark, and Kelly's face flushed red with anger. Excuse me, are you seriously questioning my qualifications as an interviewer? I've been doing this successfully for years. John, I've interviewed presidents, celebrities, musicians, authors, you name it. I don't need career advice from someone who pretends to wrestle for a living. The studio fell dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze as Kelly's words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Cena's expression shifted from frustrated to genuinely angry, his jaw clenching as he processed what she had just said. Pretends to wrestle, he said quietly, his voice now dangerously low. Is that what you think I do? Kelly, pretend. Kelly immediately realized she had crossed a line, but her pride prevented her from backing down completely. John, you know what I meant? Professional wrestling is entertainment. It's scripted. I wasn't trying to diminish what you do, I was just pointing out that we all have our areas of expertise. Her attempt at clarification only seemed to make things worse. Scripted. Cena nodded slowly, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You know what else is scripted? Kelly, this interview, your questions, your responses, your fake concern for journalistic integrity. The difference is, when I perform, everyone knows it's entertainment. When you perform, you pretend it's news. The comparison clearly stung, and Kelly's composure finally began to crumble completely. Kelly's face went through a spectrum of emotions, from anger to embarrassment to something approaching genuine hurt. The audience could sense that they were witnessing something far beyond typical television drama. This had become deeply personal. For both participants, that's completely unfair. John, what I do requires real skill, real preparation, real empathy for my guests. I'm not just reading lines off a teleprompter. Real empathy. Cena's laugh was harsh and humorless. Kelly, if you had any real empathy, you wouldn't have ambushed me with tabloid gossip in the first place. If you had any real preparation, you would have known that those anonymous sources you're so fond of citing have been spreading lies about me for months. And if you had any real skill, you would have found a way to ask legitimate questions about my career without resorting to character assassination. The words hit Kelly like physical blows, and for the first time since the interview began, she looked genuinely shaken. Her voice trembled slightly as she responded. Character assassination. John, you're being completely over the top here. I asked you one question about some industry reports, and you've turned this into some kind of crusade. You're acting like I personally destroyed your reputation when all I did was give you a chance to address the rumors. Address the rumors, Cena repeated, shaking his head in disgust. Do you hear yourself, Kelly? You're still defending this. Even now, after everything that's been said, you still think you did nothing wrong. That's what's really disturbing about this whole situation. You genuinely believe that spreading unverified gossip is journalism, and that makes you dangerous. Kelly stood up now, matching Cena's height advantage with her own surge of indignation. Dangerous? Are you out of your mind? I run a daytime talk show, John. I interview celebrities and musicians and authors. I'm not exactly Bob Woodward here. You're treating this like I'm some kind of investigative journalist trying to bring down the government. No, Kelly, you're something worse, Cena said, his voice carrying a finality that made everyone in the studio hold their breath. You're someone with a platform who doesn't understand the responsibility that comes with it. You're someone who thinks entertainment value justifies destroying people's reputations. At least investigative journalists are trying to expose the truth. You're just trying to get ratings. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. And Kelly's response came with surprising venom. You want to talk about ratings? John, let's talk about ratings. You want to talk about using entertainment value to destroy reputations? Your entire career is built on fake fighting and manufactured drama. You've made millions of dollars pretending to hate people, pretending to get injured, pretending to overcome impossible odds. So don't stand there and lecture me about authenticity. Cena went completely still, his face a mask of controlled fury. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet that the studio microphones had to strain to pick it up. You know what the difference is, Kelly? When I step into that ring, everyone knows it's performance. The fans know it, the wrestlers know it, the announcers know it. Nobody is being deceived. But when you sit behind that desk and repeat gossip as fact, when you dress up entertainment as journalism, you're lying to your audience. You're lying to them about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Kelly's composure finally snapped completely. I am not lying to anyone. This is a talk show, not the evening news. People watch because they want to be entertained. They want celebrity gossip. They want drama. That's what daytime television is, John. And if you can't handle that, then maybe you shouldn't have agreed to come on my show. You're absolutely right, Cena said, his voice suddenly calm in a way that was somehow more unsettling than his anger had been. I shouldn't have come on your show. I should have done my research better. I should have known that the Kelly Clarkson show had become just another gossip mill masquerading as legitimate television. That's my mistake, and I won't make it again. The finality in his tone sent a chill through the studio. Kelly seemed to sense that she was losing control of the situation entirely, and made one last desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. John, look, maybe we both got a little heated here. Why don't we take a breath, reset, and start over? We can talk about your movie, your charitable work, anything you want to discuss. Cena looked at her for a long moment, and there was something almost sad in his expression. Kelly, the problem isn't what we talk about now. The problem is that you've shown me exactly who you are and what this show represents. You've shown your audience too, whether you realize it or not. Some things can't be reset. He turned toward the audience, addressing them directly for the first time since the confrontation began. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here today to talk about my work and connect with fans like yourselves. Instead, I've been subjected to an ambush based on anonymous gossip and unverified claims. I won't dignify this process any further by pretending that what's happening here is acceptable. Kelly made one final attempt to maintain control. John, please don't do this. We can work this out. This doesn't have to end badly for either of us. But Cena was already removing his microphone, his movements deliberate and final. Kelly, this ended badly the moment you decided that my reputation was worth sacrificing for a few dramatic moments on your show, he said, placing the microphone on his chair. I hope it was worth it. He looked out at the stunned audience one more time. Thank you all for coming today. I'm sorry you had to witness this. But sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's uncomfortable. With that, John Cena walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing through the silent studio. Kelly stood frozen behind her desk, watching helplessly as one of Hollywood's biggest stars disappeared through the stage door. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or simply sit in shocked contemplation of what they had just witnessed. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of Kelly's visible distress as she tried to process what had just happened. Her producers were frantically signaling from offstage, but she seemed unable to focus on anything except the empty chair where John Cena had been sitting just moments before. The interview that was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance had turned into a masterclass in how quickly professional relationships can explode when fundamental principles clash. As the reality of the situation sank in, Kelly finally found her voice, though it was shaky and uncertain. Well folks, I guess that's not exactly how we planned to end this segment. She attempted a laugh, but it came out hollow and forced. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have some music from our next guest. But even as she spoke the words, everyone in that studio knew that this moment would overshadow anything else that happened. On the show that day, the confrontation between John Cena and Kelly Clarkson had become something much larger than either of them had intended. A collision between two different philosophies about entertainment, journalism, and the responsibility that comes with having a public platform. What do you think really caused John Cena to reach his breaking point? Was it Kelly's dismissive attitude toward professional wrestling, her refusal to take responsibility for spreading gossip, or something deeper about the nature of celebrity culture itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one, because the world of celebrity interviews is full of moments that go completely off the rails in ways that nobody could have predicted.